Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod here to talk about Survivor Season 47, Episode 9, titled Nightmare Fuel. Last week on Survivor, after Kyle won his third immunity in a row, Andy flipped on the Gatas and helped the Tukus and Lavos vote Queen of Easter Sierra out of the game. Before I dive in, I put a link in the description to my playlist where you can catch up on my previous Survivor recaps. I also posted my mid-season player rankings this morning. We'll talk about that later. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing. But let's dive into it. Back at Becca Beach, Sam tells us that Gata got as Andy turned on he and Rachel, voting out Sierra. It was a catastrophe. Sam and Rachel tried to game plan, and Rachel explains how she played her shot in the dark to gauge how everyone reacted, and she ultimately felt it would be safe not to play her idol. Andy is proud of himself for turning on Gata. He feels it was chef's kiss, and he tries to explain himself to Sam to salvage their relationship. The next day, Rachel and Andy try to work things out. She apologizes to him for how she treated him in the past, and we flash back to Andy asking Rachel for an alliance, and her shutting him down, which ultimately put him at the bottom, and led to him working against her. They agreed to turn over a new leaf and work together, and they agree to target Kyle if they can. Teeny, Saul, and Genevieve apologize to Sam for turning on him, but he's really salty with them and blames them for the Sierra vote out. He plays off that he's not mad, and the Lavos believe him. They discuss targeting Gabe. From Tree Mail, they find out that one player will win immunity, but they have to split up into pairs in advance of the challenge. The pairs are Sam and Andy, Gabe and Kyle, Sue and Genevieve, Caroline and Rachel, and Teeny and Saul. The immunity challenge will happen in 3 stages. In the first stage, they need to crawl through a sandy tunnel and dig in the sand to retrieve 2 puzzle steps. The last 2 teams to complete this will be out of the competition and will lose their votes at the next tribal. They'll be given an opportunity to go on a journey to win their vote back. In the second stage, they need to assemble a staircase and do a crazy balance beam, with the last team to cross this being eliminated. In the third round, the 4 remaining players will do an endurance competition where they'll be propping themselves against 2 walls, standing on pegs. The last player standing wins immunity. The final 4 will also win a picnic back at camp as a reward. They get started with the first round, crawling through the tunnels. Kyle is the best at this, and Teeny is really struggling.
My ass is too big!
Kyle and Gabe finish first, then Sam and Andy rip their bag, which makes it more difficult to get their bag out of the sand, clearing the way for Teeny and Saul and Genevieve and Sue to move on to the next round, eliminating Caroline, Rachel, Sam, and Andy, who won't be able to vote unless they win their votes back. In the next round, Genevieve and Sue excel with the stair puzzle and get to the balance beam first. Sue does a barrel roll off the beam, but it's all for nothing as Kyle and Gabe and Saul and Teeny pass them and move on to the final round. They get to the endurance portion, which starts off easy and is mostly difficult for us at home, having to look at their nasty dirty feet. Teeny and Saul drop at the same time, and Gabe and Kyle move to the last, most difficult foothold. Shockingly, Kyle drops, and Gabe wins individual immunity, and does this cringe little dance. Sound off in the comments. TikTokers, what is this dance called? Wrong answers accepted. Following the challenge, the reward players get their sandwiches, with Saul and Gabe having an extended burp off that was honestly repulsive. Gabe suggests that they vote Sam out, but Saul doesn't seem down. Back at camp, Sue and Genevieve talk. Genevieve tells Sue that Saul is targeting Gabe, and suggests that they blindside Saul. Apparently Genevieve is still bitter with Saul for voting Rome out of the game, which seems so out of left field for me. I thought they were good. Sue tells Genevieve that she'd be down to turn on Saul if Genevieve can get Gabe on board. When the reward players get back to camp, Saul quickly tells Genevieve and Sue that they've decided that Sam is going home. Genevieve pulls Gabe aside and tells Gabe that Saul and Teeny want to target him. Gabe is down to clown with Genevieve, and they approach Kyle, who seems down as well. The no-vote players go on their journey where they learn they'll be competing in a game where 3 of them will earn back their votes, leaving 1 player voteless.
These journeys are like nightmare fuel for me.
Oop, Andy said the thing for the 2nd episode in a row now. They'll take turns placing 1 tile at a time in a tower. Whoever places the tile that drops the stack will lose their vote. They're basically playing Survivor Jenga. I quite enjoyed watching this. It was very nice. Caroline topples the tower and loses her vote. Before going home, the no-vote players agree on Kyle as a target. Back at camp, Gabe, Sue, Genevieve, and Kyle need to get 1 more vote to have enough to get Saul out. Genevieve asks Andy, who isn't really down. She approaches Rachel, who says she's down, and Rachel later tells Sam about the plan, but Rachel tells Sam not to tell anyone. Sam, who's at the bottom, instantly decides to blow up the game. He tells Saul everything, and Sam suggests that they target Sue instead. The sun is setting, and they start scrambling to get the votes together, including Teeny telling Genevieve that they need to save Saul, which shows Genevieve that her plan may not be happening. It gets so chaotic, and they just run out of time and have to go to Tribal. At Tribal, jury member Sierra arrives, looking great, but she's pissed. Almost as soon as Tribal starts, side conversations start happening, with the Lavos and Sam especially squirmy and not able to play along with the Tribal Council reindeer games. Throughout, Gabe is going above and beyond to tell everyone they're good, they're fine, which should be red flag number 1, 2, and 3. As a viewer, it's actually impossible to pay attention to both the main conversation with Jeff and the side conversations happening. This was such a headache. So I popped an Advil, and thank God they get to voting. When Jeff asks for advantages, none are played, and Saul is voted out unanimously by a vote of 8 to 1, with the 1 vote for Sue being from Saul. So we have to say goodbye to Saul here, who started the season with a quiet edit, but after Genevieve scooped him up as an ally, and he started making inroads at the merge, I felt really positive about his game. This is so embarrassing for me. I just posted a mid-season player ranking this morning where I put Saul in first. He was in such a good spot. He had his old Lavos and was forming bonds with Rachel and Kyle. I'm so shocked that Genevieve was still bitter with Saul about the Rome vote out. Genevieve threw him right under the bus, and he had no way to save himself here, with his allies being so out of the loop that they voted with the group and sent him on his way. Kind of a bummer because I still think he was a great player, but this episode did see him getting simply outplayed by Genevieve. So feel free to comment on that ranking video, calling me a twit like Miss Lisa. I can handle it. That video aged faster than milk, huh? Back to Saul, I wouldn't complain to see him again on TV. I feel he'd be better suited for something like The Traitors, though that feels a bit unrealistic as he's not the most thrilling TV character. So I would be surprised to see him again, but I still think he's a great player. So that's all, folks. If you liked the video, consider liking and subscribing. I'll be back next Wednesday to talk about more Survivor. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the episode. Until next time, have a nice weekend. Bye.